Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice Podcast, topic name is 40 plus C2 vocabulary words with meanings. Get ready to truly elevate your linguistic game today. We're embarking on, a fascinating journey through some exceptionally sophisticated English vocabulary. The kind of words that don't just add flair to your communication, but imbue it with incredible nuance and pinpoint precision. Our mission for this deep dive is to equip you, our curious listener, with advanced vocabulary that will make your speaking and writing not just proficient, but, truly distinguished. We're going to help you become more well-informed and articulate, exploring not just what these words mean, but how they shape and enrich our very understanding of the world around us.
Yeah, and what's truly compelling about mastering C2 level vocabulary is that it extends far beyond merely sounding intelligent or erudite. It's fundamentally about cultivating intellectual agility. These words empower you to articulate subtle shades of meaning that everyday language, it often struggles to capture. They offer a level of precision that becomes indispensable in professional discourse, academic endeavors, or really any situation where absolute clarity and depth of expression are paramount. It represents a significant leap beyond typical conversational English, opening up entirely new avenues for thought, critical analysis, and profound understanding.
Absolutely. Think of it as upgrading your mental landscape to high definition. We're not simply presenting definitions, we're diving deep into the very essence of these words, exploring their intricate nuances, and even unearthing some surprising insights into how they function in effective communication. This deep dive is entirely focused on providing you with the semantic tools to articulate complexity and insight, ensuring you're not just speaking, but truly communicating on an elevated, more refined level. So let's embark on this journey through rich, impactful words that have the power to genuinely transform your engagement with the English language. All right, let's thoroughly unpack our first word, abstruse. It genuinely sounds as complex and intricate as its meaning suggests. When you encounter abstruse, what immediately springs to mind as the core essence of its meaning?
Well, it immediately evokes something that isn't just hard or difficult to understand in a superficial sense. It's more than that. It's something that genuinely demands significant, often profound intellectual effort and sustained engagement. We're referring to concepts or theories that are inherently obscure, perhaps deliberately dense, and require a deep, focused mental commitment to even begin to unravel. It's not merely a matter of lacking information, it's about the intrinsic nature of the topic itself, making it resistant to immediate comprehension. The word itself actually comes from the Latin abstrudere, which means to conceal, hide, and that perfectly captures the sense of inherent hiddenness.
And the quantum physics lecture example truly resonates with this idea of something being abstruse, doesn't it? One can easily imagine sitting in such a lecture, grappling with concepts that defy everyday intuition, realizing that this is a field that by its very nature lends itself to extraordinarily complex and difficult to penetrate ideas. It's not simply that you aren't smart enough, it's that the subject matter itself is structured in a way that demands immense intellectual rigor.
Precisely. Quantum physics, with its counterintuitive principles, its reliance on abstract mathematical frameworks, and its departure from classical mechanics, it's a prime candidate for being described as abstruse. It's a domain where the fundamental ideas are so far removed from our macroscopic experiences that they necessitate an entirely different mode of cognitive processing. Historically, many scientific concepts, think about Darwin's theory of evolution or Einstein's theory of relativity, they were initially considered abstruse by the general public. It required years of scientific popularization and education to become more widely, if not fully, understood. That shift from abstruse to more accessible often highlights the power of clear articulation and, simplified analogies. So employing abstruse communicates a very specific kind of intellectual hurdle. It indicates that the subject itself possesses an intrinsic, profound complexity. It offers a precise semantic tool for articulating the inherent conceptual barriers within a given intellectual domain.
Okay, moving from inherent complexity, let's explore cryptic. While abstruse is about that inherent, often unavoidable complexity, cryptic feels a bit more intentional, doesn't it? As if someone chose to make something difficult to understand, perhaps to hide meaning or create intrigue.
That's a crucial and well-observed distinction. Yes, cryptic certainly carries a strong element of mystery and hidden meaning. It implies that information isn't just complex, but it feels like there's a secret or an encoded message deliberately waiting to be deciphered. It's not merely hard to grasp, it actively feels like something is being withheld, obscured, or presented in a deliberately enigmatic fashion, which, thereby creates a sense of bewilderment or intense curiosity in the recipient. The word itself derives from the Greek kryptos, meaning hidden, which really underscores this intentional concealment.
So if someone leaves you a cryptic voicemail message, you're not just thinking, that was a tough message, are you? You're left wondering, what on earth did they really mean? What aren't they explicitly saying? It compels you to pause, analyze, and actively try to interpret the unspoken.
Absolutely. Cryptic voicemail immediately triggers an interpretive response. It often evokes both curiosity and, a degree of bewilderment. You find yourself piecing together fragmented information, inferring meaning from the minimal explicit cues. This brings up an intriguing question. Why would someone choose to be cryptic? It could be for deliberate obfuscation, maybe. Or perhaps to pique interest and force engagement. Or maybe they're operating under the assumption of some shared, unspoken context with the receiver. Historically, cryptic messages have been pivotal, haven't they? From the enigmatic pronouncements of ancient oracles, which often required interpretation by priests, to wartime codes like the Enigma, whose very purpose was to obscure meaning from adversaries. Misinterpretations of cryptic communications have actually shaped historical events, highlighting their significant impact. The implications in communication are profound. It places a significant burden on the recipient to actively interpret and deduce, which can be either incredibly frustrating or deeply intriguing, depending on the stakes and, the relationship.
This is where it gets particularly insightful, connecting to both abstruse and cryptic, but with a distinctly exclusive flavor, esoteric. This word truly emphasizes the insider aspect of knowledge, suggesting a selective audience.
What's particularly fascinating here is that esoteric doesn't necessarily mean something is difficult for everyone to understand. That's key. Instead, it precisely defines knowledge, language, or practices that are specifically intended for or comprehensible by only a small group of people who share special knowledge, interests, or perhaps a particular initiation. For those within that select group, the cognoscenti of the information might not be complex at all. But for outsiders, it remains utterly baffling. This contrasts sharply with general complexity by highlighting exclusivity and often a sense of privilege associated with access to such knowledge. The term comes from the Greek esoterikos, meaning belonging to an inner circle, so quite literal.
So a philosopher's lecture, especially one delving into a highly specialized subfield, might be considered esoteric.
Right.
Not necessarily because the philosopher is trying to be deliberately obscure, but because the discipline itself has developed its own specialized lexicon, its own intricate historical context, its own specific terminology that only other initiated philosophers would truly grasp.
That's a perfect illustration, yes. Specialized fields, whether it's theoretical philosophy, advanced mathematics, or even highly technical hobbies like, say, competitive programming or vintage watch repair, they naturally cultivate their own esoteric language. This language serves as a crucial shorthand for those within the group. It fosters a powerful sense of community, shared identity, and hyper-efficient communication among experts. For instance, a computer scientist discussing a recursive function or a physicist referencing dark matter is using terms that are commonplace in their fields, but might be utterly opaque to an outsider without proper context.
They're totally opaque.
But this dual nature, however, also presents significant implications regarding the power and potential pitfalls of esoteric knowledge. While it can strengthen internal bonds and facilitate deep, nuanced discussion within a niche, it can also lead to exclusion. It can erect barriers to interdisciplinary understanding or make vital knowledge inaccessible to a broader audience, thereby limiting its societal impact.
So after grappling with all of that complexity, hidden meaning, and exclusive knowledge, let's talk about something that cuts right through it. Something providing ultimate clarity. Cogency. This is the word for arguments that are just, undeniably clear, logically sound, and powerfully convincing.
Indeed. Cogent emphasizes the profound strength and exceptionally well-reasoned nature of an argument. It's not just persuasive in a rhetorical sense, aiming to sway emotions. It is rigorously logically sound, intellectually compelling, and therefore utterly convincing. A cogent argument presents its points in such a clear, structured, and evidential manner that it leaves very little room for dispute or counter-argument. Its roots are in the Latin cogere, meaning to compel or to drive together, which speaks to its forceful and unifying nature.
The example of a cogent case for renewable energy investment immediately brings to mind an argument that's not just passionate, but meticulously backed by solid data, presented with crystalline clarity, and logically structured to make irrefutable sense. It's not simply someone asserting we should invest, it's someone laying out an airtight case that demands assent. It just makes sense.
Precisely. To truly break down what makes such an argument cogent, one would look for several key characteristics. Robust, evidence-based claims, definitely. A logical, step-by-step progression of ideas that avoids fallacies, a clear demonstration of cause and effect or benefit, and a compelling conclusion that flows inevitably from the preceding premises. You often hear common collocations like cogent argument, cogent analysis, or cogent reason, which further underscore its formal application to reasoned discourse. So these four words, abstruse, cryptic, esoteric, and cogent, collectively illuminate the immense spectrum of communication effectiveness, from the utterly obscure and exclusive to the absolutely clear, compelling, and intellectually persuasive. It's quite a range.
Now let's pivot and consider how we typically respond to situations, particularly when faced with demands or external pressure. Have you ever found yourself in a position where you're acquiescing?
Acquiesce. Yeah, it's a particularly insightful word because it captures a very specific and nuanced form of agreement. It's a reluctant, often passive acceptance. It distinctly does not imply genuine enthusiasm or full support or even internal agreement with the decision. Not at all. Rather, it suggests a silent or passive yielding without open protest or active resistance. There's an undeniable internal disagreement or reservation, but for various reasons, that dissent is not openly voiced. It stems from the Latin acquiescer, meaning to rest, remain quiet, which is quite telling.
Like the classic scenario of acquiescing to your boss's demands, even when you fundamentally disagree with the direction, you're not outwardly fighting it, but you're certainly not happy about it either. What are the underlying dynamics at play when someone acquiesces in such a situation?
Well, in that particular scenario, the dynamics are frequently shaped by prevailing power structures, absolutely. Also, an assessment of perceived negative consequences for open defiance, or sometimes simply a desire to avoid immediate conflict and maintain a superficial harmony. The individual acquiescing might be engaged in a subconscious cost-benefit analysis, weighing the potential repercussions of vocal opposition against the inconvenience or perceived minor harm of passive acceptance.
So when might acquiescence be a strategic move versus simply passive?
That's a good question, strategically. Perhaps it's a tactical retreat to pick a more opportune battle later, or maybe to preserve a working relationship in the short term, buying time. Conversely, it could simply be indicative of a lack of agency, confidence, or maybe the opportunity to voice genuine dissent effectively. It's a subtle yet powerful word that captures that unspoken tension and internal compromise.
So if acquiesce is about reluctant agreement, capitulate takes it a significant step further towards outright surrender. This isn't just passive acceptance, it implies a more decisive end to a struggle, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Capitulate signifies a far more definitive cessation of resistance. It typically occurs after a period of struggle, negotiation, or concerted effort. It means to surrender, to yield completely, or to give up. Unlike merely acquiescing, which can be a quiet, internal acceptance, capitulation is an active decision to stop fighting, to lay down arms, or to concede defeat. The word originates from the Latin capitulum, meaning chapter, hinting at drawing up terms of surrender in chapters, quite formal.
The powerful image of rebels capitulating to government forces after hours of intense negotiations vividly illustrates this. That paints a picture of a prolonged, hard-fought struggle ultimately concluding in a decisive, often public, surrender.
Precisely. The critical context of struggle preceding capitulation is paramount. It's not a casual or minor giving in, it's the cessation of active, often overt opposition, usually because the fight has become unsustainable, unwinnable, or the costs simply too high. Comparing acquiesce and capitulate provides sharp insight. One denotes a quiet, often unvoiced, reluctant acceptance of terms, frequently without an overt public struggle, while the other describes a public, active, and definitive surrender following a period of clear resistance. They describe fundamentally different kinds of power dynamics and outcomes.
Right, from internal struggle to overt cessation of conflict.
Exactly.
Now, what about those instances when individuals simply will not budge, no matter the pressure or argument?
Yeah.
That's when they are being intransigent. This isn't just disagreeing, it's an unwavering, almost absolute refusal to even consider changing their stance.
Intransigent perfectly captures that unyielding and rigid stance. Yes, it emphasizes an absolute stubbornness and inflexibility, particularly in the context of high-stakes negotiations, deeply held opinions, or policy debates. An intransigent person is fundamentally unwilling to compromise, to shift their views, or to agree to any terms that significantly deviate from their initial fixed position. It speaks to an unyielding will, a principled or strategic immovability. Its etymology, from Latin transigere, meaning to come to an agreement, with the prefix in negating it, underscores this inability to negotiate.
The example of the union remaining intransigent, steadfastly refusing to compromise on workers' rights, truly showcases this unshakable resolve. They're not just firm, they're portrayed as absolutely immovable, a force that cannot be swayed. What are the defining characteristics of an intransigent position or individual?
Well, an intransigent position is typically characterized by a very firm set of non-negotiable principles or demands, and a profound lack of willingness to explore alternatives or find common ground, even when faced with significant pressure. It often emanates from a deep conviction in the moral rectitude or strategic necessity of one's own position. Or maybe a deliberate strategic decision not to concede any ground, viewing any compromise as a weakness. This word is considerably stronger and more formal than merely stubborn. It carries a more formal, almost political or ideological weight. It's frequently used to describe positions in complex, high-stakes negotiations or intractable disputes. It implies a fixedness that is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to overcome.
And if that refusal to budge transforms into active resistance against rules or directives, we then move into the territory of recalcitrant. This feels like it adds a definite element of overt defiance and insubordination, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Recalcitrant precisely differentiates itself from intransigent by specifically incorporating the element of actively resisting authority or control. It's not merely an unwillingness to change one's views, it's an active, stubborn defiance against established rules, instructions, or those in positions of power. It fundamentally represents a direct challenge to governance, discipline, or established order, often manifesting in unmanageable behavior. The Latin root recalcitrare literally means to kick back, like a horse resisting its rider, which paints a vivid picture of this act of defiance.
So, recalcitrant prisoner, actively refusing to follow instructions or abide by prison regulations, that's a clear confrontational act of defiance, not just a passive disagreement. It's a deliberate undermining of authority.
Precisely. The implications of this kind of resistance are often immediate disruption, chaos, and a direct challenge to the maintenance of order. A recalcitrant individual or group actively pushes back against expectations, norms, or commands, making them difficult to manage. These four words, acquiesce, capitulate, intransigent, and recalcitrant, powerfully illuminate distinct facets of human will and interaction, ranging from subtle passive agreement to overt active defiance against authority. They enable us to understand the complex spectrum of how people engage with power and persuasion.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to qualities we generally admire in people. Benevolent instantly paints a picture of pure, intrinsic goodness, doesn't it?
It truly does. Benevolent describes someone who is inherently well-meaning and kindly, someone whose actions and intentions stem from an intrinsic desire to do good for others. It encapsulates genuine kindness, profound generosity, and deep compassion, highlighting a fundamental good-heartedness that is outwardly expressed. The word itself comes from Latin bene, well, plus velle, to wish, literally meaning well-wishing.
The example of the benevolent woman donating the vast majority of her wealth to charity perfectly illustrates this selfless quality. Her actions aren't merely about giving money, they're about a deep-seated, compassionate intention to significantly improve the lives of others.
Absolutely. Her actions directly reflect profound benevolence, demonstrating a deep, sustained commitment to the welfare and upliftment of humanity far beyond any personal gain. It's a foundational C2 word for describing an altruistic character, someone whose nature is genuinely good and whose kindness is expressed through significant positive action. It's about the spirit of wishing others well, translated into meaningful contribution.
And here's where it gets particularly nuanced, going beyond simple kindness. Magnanimous suggests the nobility of spirit, something more elevated and expansive than just being nice.
Yes, what's especially compelling about magnanimous is that it implies generosity and forgiveness on a grand scale, particularly in situations where one clearly has the upper hand, or when extending it towards a rival or someone who has wronged you. It's not merely being kind or forgiving. It's about demonstrating a greatness of spirit, an ability to rise above petty grievances, resentment, or the natural human desire for retribution. The Latin roots, magnus, great, and animus, soul, mind, aptly describe a great-souled individual. It's quite profound.
So the athlete who, despite losing a fiercely contested match, is genuinely magnanimous in congratulating their opponent with sincere respect. That's a truly powerful and admirable act, especially when emotions are running high and disappointment could easily lead to bitterness. What exactly does it take to cultivate and display true magnanimity?
Well, it demands a remarkable strength of character, an exceptional ability to transcend personal feelings of disappointment, pride, or even injustice. It requires recognizing and respecting the merits or achievements of another, even an adversary, and acting with grace and generosity in victory or defeat. This is precisely why magnanimous implies a deeper moral character than merely kind. It speaks to a generosity of spirit that transcends immediate circumstances. It reflects a broader, more noble, and profoundly empathetic perspective. It's really about being above pettiness and small-mindedness.
If magnanimous speaks to a nobility of spirit, munificent distinctly speaks to lavish giving. This describes an impressive, often awe-inspiring display of generosity, particularly in its scale.
That's an excellent distinction. Munificent emphasizes the extreme nature of the giving.
Yes.
It's generosity that goes significantly above and beyond what is usual, expected, or even deemed necessary. It's characterized by an abundance of generosity, often to a degree that makes a substantial and transformative impact. The etymology, from Latin munis, gift, and facere, to make, points to making large gifts. Very fitting.
Like the billionaire's munificent donation of hundreds of millions for scholarships, funding hundreds, if not thousands, of students through their entire academic careers. That's a scale of giving that truly sets it apart from ordinary philanthropy. It's huge.
Precisely. The impact of such munificent actions is typically profound, far-reaching, and often transformative for entire communities or institutions. When we contrast this with benevolent, which primarily focuses on the intent of kindness and goodwill, and magnanimous, which highlights the spirit of generosity and forgiveness, often in specific interpersonal contexts, munificent specifically zeroes in on the sheer scale, lavishness, and grandeur of the giving. It describes a kind of generosity that is truly extraordinary in its material expression.
Shifting now from character to sheer effort, assiduous describes a truly admirable work ethic. This isn't just about working hard, is it? It implies something more meticulous and sustained.
No, assiduous entails much more than just exerting effort. It highlights exceptional persistence and unwavering dedication, combined with great care, thoroughness, and meticulous attention to detail. It speaks to a diligent and unflagging application to one's tasks, ensuring that work is not merely completed, but executed to an exceptionally high standard, with consistent and careful application over time. The Latin assiduous means attending constantly.
The scientist's assiduous research, leading to groundbreaking discoveries after years of painstaking work, is a perfect illustration. One immediately imagines countless hours of careful, patient, rigorous effort, not just a sudden burst of activity.
Exactly. Such dedicated and assiduous effort suggests a profound commitment to accuracy, an unwavering willingness to persevere through myriad challenges, setbacks, and detailed analyses, and an outright refusal to cut corners or rush processes. The results that stem from assiduous work are often those that are robust, reliable, innovative, and truly impactful in their respective fields. The intrinsic value of applying this term lies in its ability to commend not just effort, but diligent, persistent, meticulous, and consistently applied effort that yields superior outcomes.
And building on assiduous, when that perseverance is seemingly boundless and utterly tireless, we have indefatigable. This paints an even stronger, almost superhuman picture of relentless determination.
Indefatigable truly emphasizes boundless energy, an unwavering spirit, and a remarkable determination. It literally means incapable of being fatigued or impossible to tire out. It describes an individual or a spirit that never gives up, persisting tirelessly no matter the obstacles, the physical demands, or the mental strain involved. It's about sustained, relentless effort over an extended, often arduous period. It's quite impressive.
The example of someone working day and night to complete a critical project, seemingly without flagging, perfectly captures this. It conveys a level of energy, resilience, and commitment that appears almost superhuman.
What Indefatigable truly conveys about their spirit is an incredible, almost inexhaustible reservoir of resilience, inner strength, and unwavering drive. It speaks to a profound dedication and determination that keeps them going when others would have long since yielded to exhaustion or discouragement. It's a remarkably vivid and potent way to describe truly exceptional endurance and steadfastness in the fervent pursuit of a significant goal.
Shifting from sustained effort to profound intellect, sagacious speaks to an exceptional level of wisdom. This is more than just being intelligent or knowledgeable. It's about deep insight and sound judgment.
Sagacious is indeed far more than simply being wise or intelligent. It encompasses keen mental discernment, exceptional foresight, and consistently good judgment. an innate ability to understand complex situations, anticipate long-term consequences, and offer remarkably sound, well-considered advice. It denotes a sharp, insightful understanding that sees well beyond the immediate surface details into the deeper implications and underlying truths. Its Latin root sagax means quick-witted, acute, which fits perfectly.
The esteemed professor's sagacious advice, which has successfully guided generations of students through their academic and professional lives, clearly exemplifies this. It's not just generic guidance. It's advice born of profound experience, deep understanding, and astute insight into the human condition and complex challenges.
Precisely. Deep understanding truly manifests as sagacity when it is coupled with the ability to apply that knowledge judiciously and effectively in real-world, often complex situations. It implies a rare synthesis of intellect, experience, and practical wisdom, enabling one to offer guidance that is not only correct, but also profoundly helpful and farsighted. This is why sagacious suggests a rare and invaluable quality of mind, one that combines sharp intellect with an almost intuitive grasp of what is truly prudent and beneficial.
Bring us back to detail. Fastidious can be a bit of a double-edged sword, can't it? It has both commendable and potentially frustrating implications.
It absolutely can. Fastidious describes someone who is extremely attentive to detail, often to an exceptional degree. Positively, it highlights precision, accuracy, and a meticulous, painstaking approach to tasks, which can be highly valuable. Negatively, it can suggest being overly demanding, excessively particular, finicky, or hard to please, becoming almost obsessive about minor details to the point of being tiresome. Its Latin origin fastidium means disgust, disdain, reflecting the hard-to-please aspect. Interesting root there.
An editor who is fastidious, catching even the tiniest grammatical errors or stylistic inconsistencies, that's an undeniably brilliant and essential quality in their profession. However, one can also readily imagine a fastidious person at a dinner party, perhaps, meticulously inspecting every utensil or offering unsolicited critiques of the food, thereby making everyone else distinctly uncomfortable with their nitpicking. It could be quite awkward.
Exactly. Situations where fastidiousness is unequivocally beneficial include professions such as editing, scientific research, engineering, and haute cuisine, places where absolute precision and accuracy are paramount and non-negotiable. However, when it crosses the line into being excessively demanding, overly critical of trivial matters, or simply fussy in social or collaborative settings, it can indeed be detrimental. It can impede progress or foster resentment. The importance of context when employing this word is thus crucial for the listener to accurately understand its intended connotation, whether it's a virtue or a potential flaw. It highlights a fine line between commendable thoroughness and, well, exasperating micromanagement.
All right, let's now venture into exploring some less desirable, perhaps more challenging human traits, starting with belligerent. This word immediately conjures the image of someone spoiling for a fight.
That's precisely the image it evokes. Belligerent describes an individual who is hostile, aggressive, and characterized by an open readiness, even eagerness, to fight or argue. It denotes an outward manifestation of a confrontational, combative, and often actively hostile attitude, typically leading to conflict rather than resolution. Its Latin root bellum means war, so quite literal again.
The belligerent man shouting insults at passers-by, you can immediately visualize the unpleasantness, tension, and potential for escalation such behavior creates in a public space.
Indeed. Such behavior naturally tends to escalate conflict, creating an environment of fear or antagonism. It makes any form of rational discussion or peaceful resolution exceedingly difficult. This word effectively captures confrontational attitudes, going well beyond mere anger to imply an active desire for an engagement in conflict, often with little provocation. It's a very precise descriptor for someone who is consistently aggressive and argumentative.
From aggression and argumentativeness to grandstanding and empty rhetoric, bombastic describes a very specific kind of inflated language. It's all flash and elaborate presentation, but often with little actual substance underneath.
Bombastic refers specifically to the use of inflated, pompous, or overly elaborate language that ultimately carries very little real meaning, profound insight, or substantial content. It's primarily about sounding important and grand, often with the intent to impress or intimidate, but without actually conveying any truly meaningful, original, or well-reasoned ideas. It consists of overly showy words, designed for superficial effect rather than genuine communication or intellectual contribution. The term is thought to come from bombast, which was a type of cotton padding used to fill out clothing, implying words used to puff up something insubstantial. Quite a visual metaphor.
The example of a bombastic political speech, full of grandiloquent words but devoid of any concrete policies or actionable ideas, clearly makes the point. You might hear certain politicians or public figures delivering speeches that sound impressive on the surface, but when you strip away the flowery language and dramatic pauses, there's not much concrete policy or substantive vision underneath. It's just hot air sometimes.
What's particularly illuminating here is how bombastic highlights the critical importance of substance over mere style in effective communication. A bombastic speaker prioritizes the sound and impression of their words over their actual content, often as a deliberate tactic to mask a fundamental lack of genuine insight, a weak argument, or a dearth of original thought. It's a word that calls pointed attention to the superficiality and intellectual emptiness of certain kinds of public address or writing.
This is where it gets especially potent. A word with both a literal and a powerful figurative sting, caustic.
Caustic is indeed a remarkably powerful word due to its dual meaning. Literally, yes, it refers to something that is corrosive or capable of burning through or dissolving organic tissue, like a strong acid. Figuratively, and perhaps more frequently in C2 level vocabulary, it describes remarks or comments that are sarcastic in an exceptionally bitter, sharp, and cutting way. They are intended to wound, criticize severely, or deeply affect someone emotionally, much like a corrosive chemical would physically burn. Its Greek origin caustikos means burning, so both literally and figuratively burning.
Her caustic comments leaving everyone in the room silent and uncomfortable. That's a powerful image of emotional impact. It conveys a level of hurt and damage far beyond just sarcastic, suggesting something truly destructive to the atmosphere or to an individual's self-esteem.
Absolutely. While sarcasm can sometimes be witty or lighthearted, caustic remarks possess an undeniable, often vicious, destructive edge. The word conveys an intensity, severity, and intent to harm that goes well beyond simple irony or playful banter. It sharply highlights the profound power of words to wound, corrode, or undermine, both chemically in its literal sense and emotionally in its figurative application. It leaves a lingering, unpleasant, and often damaging effect on relationships or morale.
Moving from harmful words to deceptive actions, chicanery conjures vivid images of cunning and sophisticated deceit. It's trickery, but with a clever, often intricate edge to it.
Chicanery describes clever, often artful trickery used to achieve a particular goal, and it almost invariably implies deception, dishonesty, or deliberate misdirection. It's a sophisticated, often intricate form of manipulation or dishonest practice. It's frequently associated with complex systems like politics, legal proceedings, or intricate business dealings where loopholes or subtle deceptions can be exploited for unfair advantage. The word's origin might be from an old French term for a legal squabble, highlighting its association with subtle deception.
The politician's extensive financial chicanery ultimately ending his career in public scandal. That perfectly illustrates how this isn't just a simple, impulsive lie. It's a calculated, often elaborate form of dishonesty involving complex schemes to defraud or mislead.
What's particularly compelling here is how chicanery implies a highly sophisticated form of dishonesty. One that often involves elaborate schemes, the exploitation of technicalities, or subtle misrepresentations, rather than overt, easily detectable fraud. This naturally raises significant questions about the ethical implications of employing intelligence and cleverness for dishonest gain, and how easily sharp minds can be twisted for nefarious or self-serving purposes within complex societal structures. It's a term that signifies a deliberate, artful manipulation that undermines trust and integrity.
After exploring some distinctly negative actions and character traits, let's consider the response to wrongdoing. Contrite. This word is all about feeling true remorse and deep regret.
Contrite emphasizes deep, genuine regret or guilt. It signifies a sincere acknowledgement of having done something wrong and caused hurt or damage. It's much more profound than just offering a perfunctory "I'm sorry." It implies a heartfelt feeling of repentance, sorrow, and often a desire for atonement or reconciliation. Its Latin root "contrare" means to grind, bruise, suggesting a heart crushed by guilt. Very evocative.
He was visibly contrite after realizing the profound extent to which his careless words had hurt her. That scenario clearly demonstrates a profound understanding of the impact of his actions and a sincere, rather than superficial, desire to make amends, at least emotionally.
Exactly. Genuine contrition is often a crucial and indeed necessary element in any process of reconciliation, forgiveness, and ultimately personal growth. This word helps us understand the broader spectrum of human reactions to wrongdoing, ranging from outright defiance and stubborn denial to heartfelt regret, profound sorrow, and a genuine desire for atonement. It highlights the internal emotional state that drives sincere apologies and attempts at repair.
But what if someone simply cannot or will not change their ingrained behavior despite every effort? That's when they're incorrigible.
Incorrigible describes habits, faults, or more frequently, individuals who are not able to be corrected, improved, or reformed. Even after repeated attempts or admonitions, it implies a deep-seated, almost immutable resistance to change, suggesting that the behavior or trait is so profoundly ingrained that it appears beyond any possibility of improvement or rehabilitation. The word's Latin root, corrige, to correct, with the negative prefix in, makes its meaning crystal clear.
The incorrigible liar, who continued deceiving everyone around him despite repeated warnings and confrontations, presents a truly challenging and frustrating situation, doesn't it?
It is indeed. Dealing with incorrigible behavior, whether in a personal or professional context, presents significant and often intractable challenges. Efforts to correct, guide, or reform the individual frequently prove fruitless or counterproductive. This word powerfully captures the idea of character traits that seem almost fixed and unchangeable, highlighting the inherent difficulty and sometimes the ultimate futility of attempting to alter fundamental aspects of a person's long-standing behavior or disposition. It implies a kind of permanent resistance.
Taking untrustworthy to a C2 level, we arrive at perfidious, a word that truly packs an emotional punch with its gravity.
Perfidious is significantly stronger and carries far greater weight than mere dishonesty or untrustworthiness. Yes, it specifically suggests a profound betrayal, a deliberate act of treachery, or a grave breach of faith or trust. It implies a deliberate and often malicious act of disloyalty, frequently with severe and far-reaching implications for relationships, alliances, or allegiances. Its Latin root perfidus means faithless, emphasizing the betrayal of trust.
The spy's perfidious actions against the state that immediately conjures images of a serious act of betrayal, a profound violation of allegiance. Not just a simple lie, it's an act of profound disloyalty.
What's particularly striking here is how perfidious is the most apt and indeed necessary descriptor in scenarios where trust has been explicitly given, cultivated, and then deliberately, often cold-heartedly, violated. It speaks to a deep moral failing, capturing the extreme gravity of betrayal and the profound rupture it causes. It's a word reserved for the most serious forms of disloyalty, highlighting the grave implications of perfidy in both personal and political spheres.
And for those individuals who carry themselves with an unmistakable air of disdain, looking down on others, we have supercilious.
Supercilious perfectly highlights an attitude of overt arrogance and pronounced condescension. It describes someone behaving or looking as though they believe they are fundamentally superior to others, often accompanied by a dismissive, scornful, or haughty demeanor. It's a visible and often irritating manifestation of perceived superiority, conveyed through bearing, expressions, and tone. The word's Latin root supercilium refers to an eyebrow, literally raised eyebrow, signifying disdain. You can just picture it.
His supercilious smile, subtly yet unmistakably making others feel belittled and inferior. That's a very specific and insidious kind of arrogance, isn't it? It's not just self-confidence, it's an active, subtle denigration of others.
Absolutely. The social impact of such a demeanor is almost invariably negative, typically fostering resentment, discomfort, and a sense of alienation among those subjected to it. Supercilious is an excellent descriptor because it precisely captures these subtle yet potent forms of arrogance that are communicated not just through explicit words, but crucially through attitude, body language, and nonverbal cues, making others feel inherently inferior or dismissed. It speaks to a conscious effort to establish social hierarchy through perceived intellectual or social superiority.
From overt arrogance to meticulous nitpicking, pedantic describes a very specific kind of focus, often to others' exasperation.
Pedantic describes an excessive, often ostentatious, concern with minor details, obscure facts, or rigid adherence to rules. Frequently to the annoyance or frustration of others, it particularly applies to someone who nitpicks about grammar, technicalities, or abstruse points of scholarship in a way that can seem overly academic, showy, or disproportionately zealous. It derives from the Italian pedante, meaning a schoolmaster.
His pedantic corrections of everyone's grammar and pronunciation quickly wore thin with his colleagues, disrupting the flow of conversations. Most of us have probably encountered someone like this, haven't we? Someone who prioritizes the minutiae of language or rules over the actual substance or social dynamics of a conversation.
What's particularly insightful here is the nuanced line between commendable precision and irritating pedantry. While attention to detail is often an invaluable quality, pedantry crosses that line when it becomes an obstacle to effective communication, hampers collaborative effort, or undermines social interaction. Prioritizing trivial exactitude over broader understanding or rapport. The social cost of being overly pedantic can be significant, leading to alienation, being perceived as pompous, or simply being avoided. It highlights that sometimes perfect accuracy isn't always the most desirable or appropriate trait in all social or professional contexts.
When criticism crosses the line, turning harsh, cruel, and intensely abusive, it truly becomes vituperative.
Vituperative emphasizes language that is bitter, aggressively abusive, and intensely critical.
Yes.
It goes significantly beyond mere negativity or strong, direct criticism. It explicitly implies a harshness and cruelty in speech or writing, often deliberately intended to wound, denigrate, or publicly humiliate. Its Latin root vituperare means to blame, censure.
The politician's vituperative attack against his opponent during the debate, that's not just a robust debate. That's an intense, often personal verbal assault, designed to destroy reputation and standing through aggressive language.
Exactly. What distinctly separates vituperative language from simply critical commentary is the explicit intent to abuse, denigrate, and inflict verbal harm. Coupled with the sheer severity and aggression of the language employed, it marks a significant escalation on the scale of negative commentary, moving from reasoned critique to outright verbal assault or bitter condemnation. It conveys a deep animosity.
Let's explore another fascinating social dynamic, specifically focusing on behavior driven by an excessive desire to please. Obsequious.
Obsequious describes someone who is excessively obedient, attentive, or deferential in a servile, often flattering way. This type of behavior is typically driven by a transparent desire to gain favor, approval, or advantage from someone in a position of power or authority. It's characterized by fawning, sycophantic, and overly deferential conduct that often lacks genuine sincerity. Its Latin origin obsequia means compliance.
The intern's consistently obsequious behavior, which quickly began to irritate her colleagues in the office. One can easily imagine how that would play out in a professional environment where genuine collaboration and authentic relationships are valued over transparent ingratiation.
The perception of such actions is, almost without exception, negative. It's often viewed as insincere, manipulative, lacking in self-respect, and even undermining of genuine merit. It starkly highlights the crucial difference between genuine politeness, which stems from authentic respect and consideration, and being obsequious, where the behavior is primarily motivated by a self-serving desire for personal gain, advancement, or perhaps fear of disapproval. It's a nuanced descriptor for a particular kind of social climbing.
Finally, in this section covering challenging traits, inimical describes something genuinely harmful, hostile, or actively antagonistic.
Inimical is a more formal and potent word than simply dangerous or harmful. It formally denotes a detrimental, antagonistic, or openly hostile force, condition, or influence. It explicitly implies an act of opposition, a tendency to cause harm, or an inherently unfriendly disposition. It's frequently employed in academic or political contexts to describe policies, conditions, or actions that are fundamentally adverse to a particular goal or entity. Its Latin root, inimicus, means enemy.
Reckless actions proving inimical to team success. That's a remarkably clear and precise way to articulate that those actions are not just unhelpful, but are actively damaging and working against the team's overall objectives.
Indeed. It speaks to the destructive potential inherently implied by the word, highlighting a broad and significant range of ways in which things can be harmful, from a direct, overt threat to a more subtle yet profound undermining of objectives or well-being. It's a very precise and impactful term to convey active opposition or the inherent propensity to cause significant harm or detriment.
Okay, let's now delve into phenomena related to time, change, and perception. We'll start with things that feel distinctly out of place or out of their correct time period, anachronistic.
Anachronistic precisely refers to something belonging to a period other than the one being described or depicted.
Yes.
It invariably conveys a strong sense of being outdated, chronologically misplaced, or historically incongruous. This creates a cognitive dissonance where an element doesn't fit the expected historical or temporal context. It originates from Greek ana, against, plus chronos, time, against time.
Like the critically panned movie that was lambasted for its anachronistic use of smartphones in a meticulously rendered medieval setting. That kind of glaring error instantly pulls you right out of the immersive narrative, doesn't it? It shatters the illusion completely.
Absolutely. Common anachronisms in art, literature, or historical narratives frequently highlight a fundamental lack of authenticity, historical accuracy, or attention to detail, which can be profoundly jarring for an informed audience. But, a surprising fact is how often anachronisms are deliberate, used for comedic effect, maybe to make a contemporary point or to create a surreal atmosphere, such as in certain theatrical productions. This word is therefore crucial not just for criticizing historical inaccuracy, but also for discussing historical context, narrative authenticity, and the purposeful manipulation of time within artistic works. It underscores how elements that are out of time can profoundly disrupt or enhance our understanding or immersion.
From things that are stubbornly out of time, let's turn to things that barely last at all. Ephemeral.
Ephemeral profoundly emphasizes brevity. It describes something that lasts for a very short duration. It is frequently, almost poetically, used to describe beauty, fleeting moments, or profound experiences that are transient, but can be deeply meaningful precisely because of their impermanent and transient nature. Its Greek origin ephemeros means lasting only for a day.
The breathtaking yet ephemeral beauty of cherry blossoms in full bloom. They are utterly magnificent, but their fleeting nature, lasting only for maybe a few weeks, it compels you to appreciate their beauty all the more intensely while they last. You have to seize the moment.
What makes something ephemeral particularly poignant is precisely its transience.
Yeah.
There's an inherent bittersweet quality to it. The intense beauty, joy, or profundity of the moment is undeniably heightened by the awareness that it will soon pass and not return in the same way. This word perfectly captures the delicate, transient, and often exquisite nature of certain experiences, highlighting their profound yet fleeting impact on our senses and emotions. It evokes a sense of preciousness tied to impermanence.
And then almost the inverse of fleeting, rapid, often vigorous growth, which we describe as burgeoning.
Burgeon describes something growing or developing rapidly, often with a sense of flourishing or blossoming. It's frequently applied to businesses experiencing rapid expansion, burgeoning trends gaining widespread popularity, or nascent ideas quickly taking root and developing. It signifies swift, often robust expansion and vigorous development. The word has Old French roots related to bud, like a flower bud opening quickly.
The town's population burgeoning after a major new factory opened, attracting a surge of workers and families that paints a clear and dynamic picture of quick, significant, and often transformative growth.
Precisely. Factors that typically cause phenomena to burgeon often involve the emergence of new opportunities, an increase in available resources, or exceptionally favorable conditions that facilitate and accelerate rapid expansion. This word powerfully captures the dynamic and often energetic nature of growth and development, suggesting an active, vital, and frequently positive surge in scale or influence. It's a much more vivid word than simply growing quickly.
But not all change is predictable or welcome. Sometimes it's simply capricious. This suggests an element of sudden, almost whimsical unpredictability.
Capricious directly speaks to unpredictability, inconsistency, and an almost whimsical changeability. Yes. It describes someone or something given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood, behavior, or decision-making. There's a distinct lack of rational basis, consistency, or stability behind these shifts, making them exceedingly difficult to anticipate, understand, or rely upon. Its Italian root capriccio referred to a sudden start or whim.
The CEO's notoriously capricious decisions, causing widespread anxiety and uncertainty among employees, as company strategies seem to shift almost weekly. That really brings home how frustrating, destabilizing, and trust-eroding unpredictable leadership can be.
What's particularly challenging here is how capricious behavior profoundly affects stability and trust within any organization or relationship. It can severely erode confidence, create an environment of constant insecurity, and make strategic planning virtually impossible. It highlights the inherent difficulty of dealing with unpredictable and inconsistent influences, whether emanating from a person's temperament or from external circumstances, where rational foresight and planning become profoundly challenging.
Moving from unpredictability to the anticipation of good fortune auspicious immediately sets a profoundly positive and hopeful tone.
Auspicious highlights something that distinctly indicates a positive or successful outcome. It strongly suggests good fortune, a promising sign, or a favorable beginning. It inherently implies a promising start or circumstances that are conducive to future success and prosperity. The word comes from Latin auspex bird seer, referring to diviners who observe birds for omens, so looking for good signs.
Sunny, clear weather on the morning of a wedding ceremony is often seen as an auspicious start to the union. That's a classic example, isn't it? It makes everyone feel A bit more optimistic and hopeful for the future.
Indeed. Other commonly perceived auspicious signs or beginnings might include a highly successful initial meeting for a new business venture, receiving unexpected good news at a critical juncture, or overcoming an early obstacle with ease. This word speaks deeply to the human desire to find meaning and positive omens in events, framing them as clear indicators of future success and good fortune. It imbues beginnings with a sense of hopeful potential.
Let's now dive into the rich world of sound, starting with something decidedly less than harmonious.
Cacophony.
Cacophony describes a harsh, jarring, and often discordant mixture of sounds, yes. It is, by its very definition, the complete antithesis of harmony or pleasant melody. It's a jumble of unpleasant, clashing, and often overwhelmingly loud noises. The Greek roots kakos bad plus phone sound directly convey its meaning. Bad sound. The cacophony of blaring car horns, screeching tires, and shouting pedestrians in rush hour traffic, making it utterly impossible to concentrate or find a moment of peace. Anyone who's been caught in heavy urban traffic knows that jarring feeling all too well. It's awful.
Absolutely. Other common examples of jarring or overwhelming sounds in urban environments could be the piercing clang of construction noise, multiple emergency vehicle sirens blaring simultaneously, or the chaotic din of a crowded, boisterous marketplace. This word vividly and precisely conveys the profound sensory impact of discordant and unpleasant sounds. It emphatically emphasizes their chaotic, unharmonious, and often grating nature, highlighting the stress such auditory environments can induce.
And then the beautiful and utterly delightful contrast. Mellifluous, a truly sweet, flowing, and pleasant sound.
Mellifluous explicitly emphasizes sweetness, musicality, and a flowing, smooth quality, describing something that is exceptionally pleasant and agreeable to hear. It's frequently used for voices, spoken language, or actual musical tones that possess a natural smoothness, richness, and beautiful resonance. The Latin root mellus honey and fluere to flow perfectly capture the idea of flowing like honey. Beautiful imagery.
Her mellifluous voice, captivating an entire audience with its natural beauty and soothing tone during her performance. You can almost hear it, can't you? A voice that is just inherently beautiful, resonant, and effortlessly delightful to listen to.
Indeed. What precisely makes a voice or a sound mellifluous is often its smooth, resonant timbre, its inherent tonal quality, its clarity, and its overall pleasant and harmonious resonance. This word connects directly to the profound aesthetic pleasure derived from harmonious and agreeable sounds, highlighting how certain auditory experiences can be utterly delightful, soothing, and captivating to the human ear. It's a word that evokes a sense of sonic beauty and effortless charm.
But not all strong sounds are pleasant or harmonious. Sometimes opinions are expressed in an emphatic and forceful, even aggressive manner. That's when they're vociferous.
Vociferous describes an individual or a group who is loud, insistent, and forceful in expressing their opinions, demands, or feelings. It strongly suggests an almost aggressive emphasis in speech, a determined and often passionate insistence on being heard unequivocally, frequently in a very public or demanding way. Its Latin root, vox, voice, plus fere, to carry, means carrying voice. They make their voice carry.
Protesters becoming vociferous in demanding justice for a societal wrong. That's a powerful and resonant image of people using their voices loudly, collectively, and powerfully to make their point absolutely clear and impossible to ignore.
Exactly. The context where vociferousness is typically employed is usually one where there's a deeply held belief, an urgent demand, or a sense of profound injustice. And the speaker or group wants to ensure their message is absolutely unambiguous, compelling, and impossible for those in power to disregard. It strikingly highlights the diverse and often forceful ways voices are utilized to convey meaning, ranging from subtle inflections to strident, unmissable, and often collective declarations designed to provoke a response.
Moving now to more abstract human experiences and grander phenomena, ambivalent captures a very common and often complex human emotional state, that feeling of being genuinely torn.
Ambivalent perfectly describes the state of having mixed, conflicting, or contradictory feelings or ideas about something or someone. Yes, it precisely encapsulates the inherent uncertainty in emotions or decisions where opposing feelings or inclinations coexist simultaneously. It's that internal push and pull of wanting two different, often mutually exclusive things or feeling both positive and negative emotions at once. The Latin ambi, both, plus volere, to be strong, hints at equally strong opposing feelings.
Feeling genuinely ambivalent about accepting an exciting job offer to move abroad, simultaneously thrilled by the opportunity for adventure, yet deeply nervous about leaving behind familiarity and loved ones. That's such a relatable and profoundly human feeling. Why is it so important to have a precise word for this complex emotional state, rather than just saying undecided?
Well, it's important because ambivalent allows us to precisely articulate a very common and nuanced human experience that is far more profound than simple indecision. It's not just about lacking a clear choice, it's about experiencing a rich and often unsettling tapestry of conflicting emotions, beliefs, or desires. It acknowledges the inherent complexity in human emotions and decision-making, moving beyond simplistic yes or no feelings. To accurately describe a nuanced internal state that a vast number of people experience regularly, it speaks to the psychological reality of holding contradictory feelings without necessarily needing immediate resolution.
Let's explore the intriguing realm of truth, legend, and widespread belief. Apocryphal stories hold a rather special and often captivating place in our collective consciousness, don't they?
Apocryphal refers to something of doubtful authenticity or questionable origin, even though it is widely circulated, frequently repeated, and often believed to be true. It's a word most commonly applied to legends, anecdotes, popular sayings, or historical tales whose factual basis or precise origins are uncertain, unverified, or outright dubious, despite their widespread prevalence. Its Greek origin, apokryphos, means hidden, secret, suggesting stories kept from public circulation or of dubious origin.
The apocryphal tale of the haunted castle, which has attracted legions of curious tourists for generations, despite historians having debunked its supernatural claims countless times. People genuinely love a good story, even if they harbor a suspicion that it might not be entirely or even partially true. Why do such captivating stories persist so stubbornly across generations?
Well, these stories persist often because they are intrinsically compelling, deeply entertaining, or because they tap into deeply held cultural beliefs, anxieties, or desires for the marvelous. The human fascination with stories that might not be entirely true is a powerful and enduring one, as they frequently serve vital cultural functions. To entertain, to convey moral lessons, to build community identity, or simply to add vibrant color to our collective folklore and historical narrative, regardless of their factual accuracy. They fill gaps, you know?
Right, they fill gaps or cater to our romantic inclinations.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets particularly impactful. A word that describes devastation and widespread destruction, both literally and with immense figurative power: conflagration.
Conflagration is an exceptionally powerful word with a potent dual meaning. Its literal meaning is a massive, highly destructive fire, one that spreads rapidly and consumes vast areas, often with catastrophic consequences. But it also possesses a powerful and frequently used metaphorical extension, signifying a large, violent conflict, upheaval, or period of intense social or political turmoil, often on a grand or national scale. Its Latin root conflagra means to burn up.
The wildfire quickly turning into a massive conflagration that devastated countless homes and vast tracts of forest. That's a terrifying little example of uncontrolled destruction. But then one can readily imagine the metaphorical applications, such as a major political upheaval or widespread social unrest, being described as a conflagration of dissent and discord.
What's particularly striking here is how the word itself inherently conveys immense destructive power, whether that's the literal inferno of actual flames or the metaphorical fire of widespread conflict and societal chaos. The metaphorical use is especially effective and resonant precisely because it evokes the same visceral sense of uncontrollable, widespread destruction, rapid escalation, and profound chaos that a literal devastating fire would cause. It powerfully highlights the inherent capacity of language to convey immense destruction and pervasive conflict, both on a physical and a societal level.
Returning to human behavior, but now on a grander, more chaotic, and often disruptive scale, obstreperous captures a distinctly difficult and unruly energy.
Obstreperous describes something or someone noisy, unruly, difficult to control, and often actively defiant. Yes. It's typically used for groups such as large crowds, unruly children, or any chaotic collective entity that presents a significant challenge to order, discipline, and management. It implies a boisterous and stubbornly resistant quality. Its Latin origin, obstrepere, means to make a noise against.
The classroom quickly growing obstreperous and completely unruly when a substitute teacher arrived who struggled to maintain control. That's a truly vivid and relatable picture of a situation rapidly getting out of hand, isn't it? Total chaos.
Indeed. It immediately conveys a potent sense of disruption, active defiance, and a significant lack of control, where individual unruly behaviors coalesce into a collective challenge. Scenarios of collective unruly behavior, whether observed in a chaotic classroom, a public gathering that turns rowdy, or even a contentious political assembly, perfectly illustrate the profound challenges of managing group dynamics when individuals become collectively difficult to restrain, silence, or bring to order. It highlights the power of group dynamics to amplify disruptive tendencies.
Contrastingly, what about actions performed without much genuine thought, interest, or care? That's precisely what perfunctory describes.
Perfunctory describes something carried out with minimum effort, reflection, or genuine engagement. Yes. It often implies that a gesture, task, or action is performed mechanically, superficially, or merely as a routine obligation, conspicuously lacking true interest, sincere care, or deep consideration. It's a superficial compliance rather than a deeply engaged and meaningful action. Its Latin root perfungi means to get through, perform, just getting it done.
He gave a perfunctory nod during the crucial team meeting, clearly not paying any real attention to the speaker or the discussion. What does such a superficial action unmistakably communicate about one's engagement and attitude?
Well, it communicates a distinct and undeniable lack of genuine engagement, interest, or respect for the situation, the speaker, or the other people involved. It starkly highlights the fundamental difference between true active participation and a merely superficial compliance, indicating actions that are simply going through the motions rather than being driven by authentic intent, thoughtful consideration, or sincere investment. It often signals disinterest or even contempt.
For those grand, perhaps impossibly ambitious or utterly idealistic dreams that seem destined to face overwhelming odds, quixotic is often the single perfect word.
Quixotic directly takes its origin, and indeed its essence, from the iconic literary character Don Quixote. Yes. It specifically describes something unrealistically idealistic, exceedingly impractical, or romantically but foolishly chivalrous. It refers to noble pursuits or grand visions that are ultimately doomed to failure or destined to prove fruitless precisely because they are so out of touch with practical reality and real-world constraints.
His quixotic dream of single-handedly building a utopian city in the middle of a desert without proper funding or logistical planning quickly collapsed into an expensive failure. That unique blend of noble idealism and inevitable crushing impracticality is truly captured by quixotic.
Exactly. It speaks compellingly to the fine, often blurred line between commendable ambition and profound delusion. A quixotic endeavor is characterized by romantic, often naive, idealism that fundamentally fails to account for practical limitations, harsh realities, or the sheer intractability of the world. It's a word that simultaneously acknowledges the inherent beauty and purity of grand visions, while also gently but firmly critiquing their fundamental impracticality and likely futility. It captures the pathos of high-minded but ultimately doomed pursuits.
A word that so perfectly and ubiquitously describes our modern, interconnected world. Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous emphasizes omnipresence to a remarkable degree. It means present, appearing, or found everywhere at the same time. It describes phenomena, objects, or ideas that seem utterly inescapable, permeating virtually every aspect of our daily lives and environments. The Latin root ubique means everywhere.
Smartphones becoming absolutely ubiquitous in modern society is the quintessential example. You literally see them everywhere you go, in every hand, in every corner of the globe. Their presence is inescapable. You can't get away from them.
Absolutely. Other ubiquitous elements of contemporary life might include Wi-Fi connectivity, pervasive digital advertising, or maybe the presence of global fast food chains in almost every major city. What's particularly fascinating here is how some phenomena become so deeply ingrained, widespread, and universally adopted that they are virtually omnipresent, fundamentally reshaping our daily experiences, social interactions, and physical environments, often in ways we no longer even consciously recognize. They just are.
For a truly elegant, sophisticated, and somewhat rare way to describe striking physical attractiveness, we have the word pulchritude.
Pulchritude is indeed a rather rare, decidedly formal, and highly elegant word specifically employed to describe profound physical beauty or comeliness. It carries a sense of classical, striking, or statuesque attractiveness, often implying a grandeur of beauty rather than mere prettiness. Its Latin root, pulchritudo, means beauty.
An acclaimed actress admired not only for her immense talent and versatility, but also for her undeniable pulchritude on screen. Using pulchritude in that context really makes a statement. elevating the description of the kind of beauty being conveyed, beyond just saying she was beautiful.
It truly does. The significant impact of employing such a distinctive, formal, and somewhat archaic word is to elevate the description of beauty, imbuing it with a more sophisticated, literary, or classical resonance rather than resorting to more common, everyday descriptors. It powerfully highlights the inherent capacity of choosing the perfect and most impactful word for a specific effect, thereby adding remarkable elegance, weight, and a touch of gravitas to the description of physical attractiveness. It commands attention.
And finally, a word that describes the indescribable, the inexpressible, ineffable.
Ineffable is specifically and profoundly applied to emotions, experiences, beauty, or spiritual concepts that are so overwhelmingly great, extreme, or sublime that they utterly transcend the limitations of human language. It points to phenomena that words simply cannot capture the full depth, essence, or profound impact of, rendering them beyond articulate expression. Its Latin root, ineffabilis, means unutterable.
The ineffable beauty of gazing upon a majestic mountain peak at sunrise, where you can attempt to describe it, but the true feeling of awe, the sheer scale, the spiritual grandeur, is something words can never quite convey. You just have to experience it.
Precisely. Moments in life that truly feel ineffable are often those that evoke profound awe, wonder, spiritual transcendence, or an overwhelming sense of beauty or loss, leaving us with a distinct sense that our existing vocabulary is simply inadequate to capture their full magnitude. It speaks eloquently to both the inherent limits and the boundless potential of human language, and how acknowledging those very limits can, paradoxically, deepen our understanding and appreciation of experiences that lie profoundly beyond mere articulation. It's a word for the sacred, the sublime, the truly overwhelming. If we connect all this to the broader picture, mastering these words is not merely about sounding intelligent or eloquent in your external communication. It's more fundamental than that. It's fundamentally about expanding your intrinsic capacity for nuanced thought itself. Each new, precisely understood word offers a fresh and powerful lens through which to perceive, analyze, and articulate the myriad complexities of the world around you, thereby enriching your internal intellectual landscape as much as it refines your external discourse. It changes how you think.
So, what does this all mean for you, our dedicated listener? As you encounter these words in your continued reading and listening, challenge yourself. Don't just recognize them, but truly feel their specific weight, understand their subtle power, and perhaps even dare to confidently weave them into your own discussions and writings. How might a more precise C2 level vocabulary reshape your fundamental understanding of the world, and indeed, your profound ability to engage with it on a deeper, more sophisticated level? Something to think about. We truly hope this deep dive into C2 vocabulary has given you plenty of aha moments and a renewed appreciation for the extraordinary richness and precision of the English language. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.